Jen Romanowski is a psychic medium, soul healer, spiritual advisor, shadow worker, eclectic witch, practice magician, recovering alcoholic, and founder of Sunshine Readings. And you'll never guess what? She's on the line with us here. How are you doing today?
I am fabulous. How are you doing, Toby?
I'm doing smashing, thank you. Now, obviously we know what a magician and a recovering alcoholic is, but all the other things I mentioned, what do each of those terms mean?
Oh, I should probably have this up in a list in front of me. So let's go through this. You might have to remind me. Psychic medium. So my psychic, it means that I have literal psychic abilities. So I use these psychic abilities to divine, to basically ask some collective consciousness, who knows, information that people are curious about, whatever they may want to discover. By medium, I can see spirits on the other side, so I can connect to loved ones that have passed. I can connect to ancestors, spirit guides. I can see entities that other folks that can't. I've actually literally seen an alien before, and that was really weird. And I combine the two because by psychic medium, I actually use my own guides, my own spirit guides, to do a lot of my psychic work. So by psychic medium, that's both of them. What was the next one?
Soul healer.
Soul healer. Yeah. So this is a really interesting one. Everybody's going to have their own belief. My belief is that our souls have been around for a very long time. I believe in reincarnation and that they can continue to journey throughout many lifetimes. And sometimes throughout those lifetimes, there are things that may happen to that soul that were traumatic, difficult, troubling, challenging. And so just as people can heal energy in today's state, like there are Reiki masters and things of that nature that can heal a body today, I can actually go in, open up what is referred to as the Akashic Records, which is the belief that every soul has a written history of its past, present, and future. And I can go in and do that same type of energetic healing on the soul.
And also a spiritual advisor. What is that?
I have found that a lot of people have spiritual beliefs, but yet the picture my guides are sharing me, those spiritual beliefs tend to be very chaotic, tend to be all sorts of different things, or they have more questions than they have answers, right? And so from a spiritual advisor's perspective, a lot of times, because once again, I'm a psychic, I'm a medium, and I can actually look into their past lives and where their soul has been, and even where their soul may be going, and provide spiritual guidance, right? So we talk about every individual has a mind, body, and a spirit. I can actually provide comfort, clarity, guidance, healing, and help on the spiritual path.
And then very quickly, because I don't want to spend the whole interview talking about different concepts, but the shadow worker and eclectic witch.
Yeah.
Sounds very interesting.
Yeah. So shadow workers are individuals that are literally willing to step into the dark parts of ourselves, right? And continuously kind of shed light on what they are. I do that both for myself as well as individuals that I may be working with on a spiritual advisor where we face things that are difficult. So really always being willing, it's funny because my name is Sunshine, right? But always being willing to step into those darker places and sit with people. An eclectic witch, I'm a witch, right? I practice magic, and the word eclectic means I don't follow any one path. I use a lot of divine inspiration to say what I should do, what I am going to do, how to do it, when to, all of it, right? So there's I beat my own drum, so to speak, comes to that.
And you mentioned that you saw an alien. There seems to be some kind of correlation between psychic mediums and people who've seen aliens, which is weird because they're not really linked specifically, are they? They're completely different things.
That's a really great question, and I'm trying to think of. You're spot on. They are not directly correlated, right? Yeah. But as a psychic medium, you're often going to be open up to energies that other folks don't have a natural openness to. And so for me, for the example with the alien, I did not expect it. I had a client that sat there and described what was happening to them. And all of a sudden, as I asked to be shown I literally saw an entity that did not resemble a human. And I went, this is odd. And I asked my guides, I'm like, what am I looking at? And they're like, well, I was just like, oh, okay. So, yep, they do exist. Thank you. That was fun. Yeah.
So it was kind of your guides that helped you there. Maybe if you didn't have them, you would have just assumed it was some kind of animal that you didn't recognize.
Yeah, very, very much so. I could have assumed it was something else, or I could have assumed it was, a figment of my imagination.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah. So when did you first discover that you had all these abilities?
It's only been in like the last 2 years that I've understood how long I've known about all of these abilities, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Right. So because I've looked back and reflected, I'm a recovering alcoholic, so there's clarity that comes with that. But I've looked back throughout my entire life and recognized and realized there are various times in my life that I knew things would happen. And so they've been with me throughout my entire life. I've only within the last like 2.5 years have been what I'd say practically putting them to use.
Yeah. Now let's get into some fun stuff quickly. Are you picking up any psychic things right now, either about me or in general?
I wasn't planned to connect to you, but I'll tell you one that's been popping up, and it's actually there's a group of us that have been kind of talking about this, just energetically within the Earth. I don't even want to say universe right now because the universe is gigantic. And this is mostly within the Earth. There are a lot people are feeling a lot of constrictions, pulling things back, pulling things in. I've had to feel and deal with it a lot. We have, I'm not an astrologist, but it's hard to not step into that. So there's a lot of astrologists who'd be like, well, we've got 7 planets in retrograde, and that's why. But this energy is feeling very counter to what I would say many people may have been feeling towards the beginning of the year, where we've been in this pandemic for over 2 years now. A lot of areas started to open up. People started to go back to more, maybe their normal lives, or trying to attempt what they would have considered a normal life. And my belief is, and I'm getting like my own guides right now are nodding their head, telling me that yes to say this, is that people are realizing they can't live their life how they thought they were going to. Right? It's like this kind of like culture shock, right? If you've ever heard about people that have been engulfed in a cult and then they have to go reintegrate into society, well, that's in essence the energetic state we're all in.
Yeah.
You've got things happening worldwide. You've got war. So it's this really interesting state, and this constriction feels very. They just showed me this. I know not everybody can see, but like they just put my hands around my throat. It feels very strangulation. And when I'm asking right now, like, what does this mean in essence for the world overall? People that struggle with seasonal affective disorder, those of us in the Northern Hemisphere, I'm not sure where everybody's at, but, we're all approaching wintertime. We're going to see much deeper and, even in some regards, more dangerous impacts of seasonal affective disorders. Depression is going to be really hard hit for folks this coming, holiday season.
Yeah.
The other piece, too, is the conflict isn't going to stop. And that's a lot of it's coming from because people fight externally when they can't figure out how to handle their internal challenges.
Yeah.
Right. So we're going to see a lot of interesting things. So that's what popped up. And I'm kind of surprised to hear that.
Yeah. My watch just magically fell off. You didn't do that with any sort of psychic powers, did you?
That is considered a psychic power. But no, I don't practice that particular one. But I'd be curious, is it from someone?
No, I just bought it myself. I think I can fix it, but it's momentarily broken. That's spooky.
Oh.
It's falling apart anyway. And how does being a psychic medium and talking to the dead and all that work? Could you talk to Elvis or Marilyn Monroe if you wanted, or did they have to knock on your door, as it were?
No, if I had interest to talk to just about anybody, I could. I've definitely had some interesting conversations. I've never talked with Elvis or Marilyn, but nobody's ever really asked.
Yeah.
Right? People are like, can I talk to my grandmother or my grandfather? Which I think is a little bit sweeter. But I have to, this might be a little bit controversial, but I've talked to Jesus.
So you can clear it up once and for all. He's real.
Oh yeah, very much so. Very, very much so. And that's been a really interesting, those were some really interesting conversations. I was on a spiritual retreat and we were taking
Yeah.
a day of silence. So we couldn't talk to anybody. So I'm literally
Yeah.
I'm like, oh great, what's this going to be? And lo and behold, it was Jesus and I that hung out for most of the day. So that was cool.
Yeah. Are we able to talk to anybody right now, or does it require a certain environment?
It's not so much that it requires a certain environment, but I do have certain rituals that I do to make sure that I'm protecting myself, protecting my energy. Nothing like too, crazy or anything of that nature, but I typically do prepare myself and my space before I actually go to try to connect.
So you wouldn't be able to do it just now then?
No, it was not what I expected. Could I do it? Yes, I could, but
Okay.
we'd have to pause and then I'd have to
Yeah.
go do some things, but it would take me like 5 minutes.
Yeah, well, we can always cut it out. I'm desperately probing you here. Maybe we'll do it
I see
later.
this.
Yeah. I mean, have you spoken to any famous people in the past?
Well, I think Jesus is pretty well known.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of, so there is a lot of the work that I do from a magical perspective. So I talk to a lot of deities, spirits, and entities that have helped shepherd people throughout centuries around their spiritual beliefs. I'm trying to think because it's interesting. Often when I'm connected and doing that deep work, I don't remember. So I have to record things, right? Because I don't always remember. I've done, I've talked to a couple of the ascended masters, Buddha. I've talked with Buddha. There's another ascended master by the name of Saint Germain. I want to say somebody has asked me if I would talk to Elvis, but I don't recall the questions that they were asking, which was it had something to do with their grandmother was a big fan of Elvis and wanted to know some things. So, but no, it's typically not the number one thing. Most folks, when they sit down and are chatting with me from a mediumship perspective, are truly trying to explore and get answers from loved ones on the other side.
Yeah. And how do you know how to find these people? Because chances are there's probably a few dead people called Elvis Presley. And how do you find people's relatives as well?
Yeah, there might be a few dead people by the name of Elvis Presley. That one might be challenging because what I do is typically, so my grandmother, while she was alive, was a medium. She referred to it as talking to the angels. So I actually work with her as one of my guides. And so if I don't know, like if somebody sits down and then they're like, hey, I actually changed my mind, I would love to do a mediumship. At that point, I'll ask my grandmother, hey, can we find this individual, right?
Yeah.
If I know I'm doing a mediumship session, then I typically call for it ahead of time. And so at that point, the very first thing that I'm trying to do is find a validation. So I'll comb through and wait to see what who I find. And then I will ask whoever shows up, I need to provide validation to your loved one that this is you. What can I share with them? And so at that point, they'll start to tell me memories, stories, they'll paint pictures. It might be words, names, things of that nature. And so I then share them with my client and they're able to kind of validate back for me like, oh my God, yes, that's my grandmother. That's her.
Yeah. No doubt there are some out there that are fake, but there's a lot of people who claim that psychic mediumship as a whole is fake and you're making it all up. It's all kind of vague. You're saying stuff that usually applies to everybody. It's all nonsense.
I've thought about this a lot because I've not had anyone to my face. I run ads and I get plenty of people that love to comment on my ads and call me a charlatan and all sorts of stuff, right? It's fabulous. But face to face, I don't really get this. And so when I've talked to my own guides and I've asked, and the thing is like, where does it come from then, right? Like, where does these thoughts, these ideas, because I could understand if I'd be like, oh, it looks like you have a girlfriend, right? Like there's a 50-50 chance you'd have a girlfriend, right? There's there are certain questions, but when I say things like, I'm tasting honey. This is one of the clients, like, why do I keep tasting honey right now? Like, tell me what this is. And literally the client sitting across from me is going, well, we'd connected to her grandmother. She's going, well, I used to have tea with honey with my grandmother every Sunday. Like how, I'm like, whoa, that's crazy. How did I just make that? Like where does it come from if it's not coming from divine inspiration?
Have you ever gone to visit another psychic medium?
Yes, I have seen many psychics throughout my lifetime. Just by happenstance, by mere coincidence, found out the woman I first saw. I was 16. I still to this day have the business card that she gave me.
Wow.
When I was 16 years old. I stumbled across, like with a friend, I was supporting her in court. This was like a month and a half ago. Her attorney and I get to talking, and she starts talking to me about, oh, this woman they would see every year. Lo and behold, it's the same woman.
Wow.
Yeah, like I'm like, and she passed away this past year. And I'm like, whoa, this is weird. Yeah. So yes, I absolutely 100%. I believe in this. And I know even just me as being a psychic medium, even though I see things, there are sometimes it's really beneficial to have an unbiased viewpoint of whatever I may be exploring to help validate me and even what I may see.
And of course, this psychic medium is dead now, and that's sad. But I take it that means you're able to talk to her now.
Yeah. We've had a couple of conversations. I told her I was surprised, but kind of how interesting to have seen this happen. And I told her, I was like, well, if you have any other clients you'd like to send my way. And she got a good chuckle out of that one. But yeah, absolutely.
A lot of people use the term psychic to describe somebody who knows what's going to happen. They can predict the future. Can you do that? Or are you just the medium part?
I can do that, but there's a little bit of misconception in, what a psychic could do. I like to think of life as choose your own adventure, right? And so throughout your every minute, every hour, every, day, you're going to be making decisions that could change your hour from now, your day from now, or your 5 weeks from now. And so even though you may ask me to predict something from a future state, there could be changes that you make. And so I prefer when I do readings from a psychic perspective that I'm actually showing you your different options down different paths, right? So if you want to know if you should take a new job, I'll look at here's what's going to happen if you take the job, here's what's going to happen if you don't, right? Because it's not up to me. Like I'm not here to predict, the end of the world or who's going to win the World Series or anything of that nature. Like I'm not here to predict those things. I'm more here to use my gifts to help other people live a more enriched life.
And around this time in Halloween, do you find that you get more requests at all? Maybe people want to talk to ghosts?
I belong to a website where people can book me for events. And I have had probably no less than 2 or 3 offers proposed every other day.
Are you going to do them all?
I do typically 1 to 2 events a month. So I was already booked. And I'm literally like, I had to decline someone this morning that wanted someone on Friday. And I'm like, I have been booked for my event space for 4 months.
Wow.
So I've had to decline more in the last 2 weeks than I think the month before. I was just, in my head, I'm like, doesn't anybody know how to throw a party? You need to plan these things, right?
Seems a bit last minute.
Yeah, a little bit.
Well, what's coming up for you? I mean, are these events that we can see you in, or are they kind of private things?
These are both private events. There is one, so I'm located, I know you guys are in the UK, but I am located over in the States. One of them is a local event here in Detroit. Actually, it's in Toledo, Ohio. Oh. And that's on the 23rd. I believe. And then, the other one is a private event that I'm throwing here locally. Oh. So, kind of exciting. But, I have just started to venture into doing more podcasts, talking and speaking. And I have no clue what next year. I'm planning for next year, so I have no clue what next year is going to entail.
Nobody does, I don't think.
Yeah. Well, not until I plan it.
Yeah.
So at some point, I'll have a plan, and it won't be next year, but hold on.
Well, where are we able to keep up to date with you and commission you if we want want a reading?
Yeah, so you can always find me on my website, sunshinereadings.com. So anything new being promoted, anything of that nature is going to be right there. You can schedule one-on-ones with me directly through there. You can find me on social media, though I would admit it's a little bit of a struggle with me, energetically speaking. But you can definitely find me there. I'm on Facebook, Sunshine Readings online, Instagram as sunshine_readings. I'm also on Pinterest, so Sunshine Reading, you can find me there. I find that's probably one of my favorite places because I'm a huge nerd when it comes to researching things.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's probably going to be your best bet. I will tell you this. I talk about my own gifts, and I just as of last week launched a membership to help other people because I have found over the course of the last, it was like January, February, or March of this year, it's like every other person that sat down in front of me, every new client, everyone was saying the same thing, that they felt crazy. They didn't understand their gifts. They didn't know what was going on. They didn't know why they were having visions or hearing things or seeing things. And they felt really alone and kind of ostracized because of it.
Yeah.
People didn't understand them. They thought they were weird. And so, yeah, I created this membership after talking to many of my clients and anticipate, I mean, the membership has launched. So we've got to pull some folks into it, but helping them wake up and step into their own gifts, whether it's using them for something like this, where I do as a business, but I find that my gifts are even more impactful and more powerful to help me in my journey, what I can know and what I can explore. So if anybody listening is interested, you can find me on sunshinereadings.com to check that out too.
Excellent. Well, many thanks for joining us today. It's been very interesting to talk to you.
Very awesome, Toby. I appreciate it.